At 85, Al Pacino speaks more directly than he ever has, especially about the people in Hollywood who tested his patience or shaped his career in difficult ways. For years, audiences saw only the controlled intensity on screen, not the quiet strain happening out of view. Pacino has now opened up about the actors who challenged his confidence, unsettled his process, or turned ordinary workdays into something far heavier. Some conflicts began on set, others in casting rooms, or during long stretches of unspoken rivalry. Today we walk through the 7 names that stayed with him. The final one changes the story entirely. Number 5. Chris Sarandon, the challenging idealist. You remember Dog Day Afternoon, the pressure in the bank, the shouting crowds, and Al Pacino locked into the unraveling mind of Sonny. Yet one of the film's most debated moments never made it to the screen. Behind closed doors, Pacino and Chris Sarandon collided over a question that carried real emotional weight. They were not arguing about style. They were arguing about how to depict a person caught in a private crisis that had spilled into the public eye. Pacino pushed to cut a proposed scene in which Sarandon's character would appear in Marilyn Monroe drag and kiss Sonny. He believed the moment would turn a painful true story into a joke. Pacino told the team the bit was wrong for the film. In his view, it misrepresented people whose lives had already been reduced to headlines. He wanted the story anchored in human truth rather than a gag that played for a cheap reaction. The real robbery that inspired the film involved deeply personal circumstances. One partner sought gender-affirming surgery, and Sidney Lumet and Frank Pearson had written a script meant to treat that reality with care. Pacino believed the drag scene would strip away that dignity. During a rehearsal, he said the idea felt false, and told Lumet that the gesture would distort the emotional core of the story. The scene was dropped, replaced with quieter exchanges that focused on phone calls, hesitation, and the fraught bond between Sonny and Leon. Pacino later called the discarded gag "Bulls You," a line that made the disagreement clear to anyone listening. Sarandon, who played Leon and earned an Oscar nomination, approached the role with his own sense of responsibility. He studied the drag community, spoke with people who lived that experience, and wanted Leon portrayed with honesty. He has said that today a trans actor would likely be cast and that the industry has changed. For him, the tension was about representation during a volatile moment in public culture, not a personal dispute with Pacino. The set was intense yet collaborative, and long conversations shaped the final tone of the film. Years later, both men spoke about the project with perspective. Pacino maintained that his position protected the heart of the narrative. Sarandon felt the character would be approached differently today, though he still stood by his work. They did not become adversaries, they simply carried different convictions about what the film owed its subjects. The disagreement showed how a single creative choice can expose the fault lines in a partnership. Conflicts like this can shift the ground beneath a production. The next clash did not center on a single scene, it consumed an entire film. Number 4, Sidney Pollack, the calm perfectionist. Imagine the set in the mid-1970s. Al Pacino arrived on Bobby Deerfield carrying the intensity of The Godfather and Serpico. The film itself was quiet and melancholic, but the working styles behind it were not. Sidney Pollack ran a precise, classical set that favored control and structure. Pacino brought a need to search, to touch something raw, and to let a scene surprise him. From the first week, it was clear they were not shaping the same film. The tension did not erupt in loud arguments. It lived in small, persistent disagreements over how a moment should breathe. Pacino later said the role left him exposed and unsettled. Pollack wanted restraint with a smooth, almost European calm. During one rehearsal, Pacino pushed for a longer silence to let the character unravel. Pollack stopped him and said simply, "The moment is already there." Pacino felt the cut tightened the scene at the cost of emotional truth, and the air on set grew colder after that exchange. Nothing about it was dramatic, but Pacino understood that they were working from different instincts. People who watched the shoot remembered these quiet standoffs. Pacino wanted jagged beats that felt unpredictable. Pollack preferred measured pacing that the camera could sit with. Pacino treated performance as an inner excavation. Pollack treated it as a design choice. Neither approach was wrong, but they did not align in that moment in their careers. Profiles from the time describe a chilly atmosphere that came from two artists reaching for different results. Pacino never accused Pollack of incompetence. He respected the director and his craft. Yet he left the project uneasy about the process and the final cut. He felt the role slipping out of his hands, while Pollack felt his control over tone fading under the weight of Pacino's intensity. Critics were equally divided. Some called the film directionless, others found it haunting. What Pacino carried from the set was not anger, but a clear sense that the collaboration never found its shape. Pacino later used the word disturbing to describe the role, which said more about the experience than any complaint. Pollack continued making films in his steady and composed manner. They did not attack each other publicly, but they also did not seek another partnership. The distance remained professional and permanent. The story shows how delicate a creative bond can be when instincts do not meet. Even strong talent cannot bridge a fundamental split in method, and when rivalry does not come from the director, it can come from someone standing beside you on the same climb. If you want to follow more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe. Number 3. Robert De Niro, The Rivaling Shadow. When people talk about Al Pacino and Robert De Niro, most imagine two legends standing side by side, icons shaped by the same era. Pacino's memoir, Sonny Boy, shows a quieter truth beneath that image. He never says he disliked De Niro. He describes a tension that lived in the background of their early careers, a pressure born from something nearly every actor understands. They were competing for the same ground. In those first years, they circled the same auditions and chased similar projects. That kind of overlap can turn respect into a subtle strain. Pacino admits there was a competitive streak and said, "There had to be." He was talking about the roles that hovered between them, moments where either one could have stepped forward. It was not personal, but it created a permanent awareness that the other man was always nearby. A scene from that period captures the mood. During an early casting call for a New York-based project, Pacino arrived and saw De Niro's name already on the sign-in sheet. He later recalled thinking quietly, "Of course he is here." The comment was not hostile. It was an acknowledgement of a mirror he could not ignore. That feeling, Pacino said, became what he called a stain of competition. It settled into the background and shaped how he measured his own work. On paper, the two men were different in temperament and method, yet similar enough for the industry to place them side by side. That constant comparison created distance. It also added pressure to outperform, not out of malice, but out of fear of being the one who missed a defining moment. For Pacino, that shadow of competition became part of the job. Hollywood rewards only a few, and careers can shift with a single choice. Pacino does not carry bitterness today. Their friendship grew and eventually settled into warmth and mutual respect. Yet he writes honestly about the insecurity he felt during those early years. Facing someone as gifted as De Niro meant confronting doubts about his own worth. Those doubts shaped him. They pushed him to define an identity that did not rely on contrast, but on the work itself. His reflections remind us that rivalry is rarely loud. It happens in private, in the quiet thoughts that follow an audition or a near miss. It is tied to self-worth rather than hostility. Pacino's honesty lifts the curtain on that truth and shows how even icons can feel overshadowed. Competition can stretch a career in unexpected ways. Money and a broken cast list can do the same. The next dispute changed an entire chapter of a legendary franchise. Number 2, Robert Duvall, the calculating negotiator. This was one of those Hollywood disputes that seemed small from a distance, but left a visible mark on a major franchise. Robert Duvall stepped away from The Godfather. Part the 3 over salary, and the results reshaped the story in ways fans still discuss. Duvall felt the studio's offer did not match his value, especially in relation to Al Pacino's. When negotiations failed, he chose not to return. Francis Ford Coppola later said that Duvall wanted a salary closer to Pacino's, and without an agreement, the script had to be reworked to explain Tom Hagen's absence. Tom Hagen was never a minor presence. He was Michael Corleone's trusted advisor, the steady voice in the background, a character whose loyalty grounded the family. When Duvall declined the role, Coppola did not recast him. Instead, he wrote Hagen out and created a smaller legal figure to handle plot duties. On set, Pacino reportedly paused during an early table read and said quietly, "It feels different without Bobby." That line captured the sense of loss. Viewers later felt it too. Coppola has openly said the film feels incomplete without Duvall. Duvall explained his decision with clarity. In a 2004 interview for 60 Minutes, he said, said that if Pacino was paid twice his amount, that was understandable, but he would not accept being paid 3 or 4 times less. That line summarized his stance. He believed the gap was too wide, given Hagen's importance and his own place in the industry. It was not a fight filled with personal hostility. It was a negotiation that reached a limit and ended on principle, leaving the production to adapt. From Pacino's and the studio's perspective, the situation looked different. The franchise was expensive, and the lead actor carried significant box office weight. Higher salaries often follow that reality, yet when the balance shifted enough to remove a defining character, the loss became evident. Critics and fans have since debated whether Duvall's position was fair, or whether the studio misjudged the value he brought. What is not debated is the result. The shape of the film changed. A dispute over money can remove a voice from a story. It can also expose deeper tensions about recognition, power, and who the industry chooses to back. Those tensions set the stage for the next name, a rival whose presence followed Pacino from the beginning. Number 1, Jack Nicholson. The unpredictable rival, Al Pacino's connection to Jack Nicholson has always carried the weight of a quiet rivalry rather than a straightforward friendship. The tension began before the two men ever shared a room. When The Godfather was moving through early development, the studio pushed for a bankable name to play Michael Corleone. Nicholson, Redford, and Beatty were floated as safer choices. Coppola fought for Pacino, and that fight mattered. Pacino has written that Paramount did not want me, a memory that lingered and shaped how he saw the power structure around him. Nicholson has offered his own take. In interviews, he said he passed on Michael because he believed the role should belong to someone who fit the character more naturally. Whether that was practicality or principle, the effect was the same. Nicholson's name filled the conversation long before Pacino entered it. For a young actor trying to build a career through risk rather than fame, it felt like a reminder that the system trusted notoriety before it trusted instinct. It did not create hostility, but it marked the early years with a quiet sense of being measured against bigger shadows. Award seasons deepened that tension. Throughout the 1970s, Pacino and Nicholson occupied the same rooms, often on the same shortlists. Their approaches to acting could not have been more different. Pacino stayed inward and controlled. Nicholson pushed outward with energy that could swing from charm to volatility. A scene at one ceremony captured their distance. Pacino watched Nicholson stride to the stage for yet another acceptance and murmured to a colleague, "He owns the room." The comment was not bitter. It was an acknowledgement that their careers moved through the same spaces but created opposite reactions from crowds. Critics and voters often compared them directly. Magazine spreads framed them as competing visions of New Hollywood. Their names split votes in key years, and even when their work had nothing to do with one another, the industry treated them like two sides of a scale. That public framing blurred professional rivalry into something that looked personal from the outside. Pacino did not speak of anger. He spoke of pressure, of a sense that the room measured him against someone he respected but did not resemble. Nicholson continued his path with the confidence of a star built for spectacle. Pacino walked his with a quieter force. The difference between them became part of the story, whether either man wanted it or not. Their rivalry showed Pacino something about Hollywood. Talent earns respect, but visibility tilts the room, and sometimes the hardest opponent is not the one standing in your way, it is the one standing in your light.